Welcome back to the deep dive. You guys know we love to get our hands dirty with the research, and today we're tackling a topic that, honestly, a ton of you have requested. Baby nutrition.
It's a big one.
It is. There is just so much info out there. It can get overwhelming. And that's why, for this deep dive, we're going to break down a guide called Complete Guide to Baby Nutrition.
Okay.
It's originally in Spanish, so for this deep dive, we'll be working from a translation.
Makes sense.
And this guide, I think it's going to be really useful because it's specifically for new moms. So it's super practical and really reassuring, which is what we all need, right?
Yeah. Especially first-time parents. There's a lot to figure out.
Absolutely. By the end of this, I hope you'll feel like you've got the knowledge to navigate all the feeding choices out there with a bit more confidence.
That's the goal.
All right, so let's start with the basics. When it comes to feeding a newborn, what does this guide recommend?
Well, it echoes what both the World Health Organization, the WHO, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, strongly recommend, and that's breastfeeding. They consider it the optimal choice.
Right, and that's not just a trend, right? There's actual science behind it.
Oh, tons of science. Breast milk is literally tailored to the baby. It's like personalized nutrition, constantly evolving to meet their needs as they grow.
Whoa, that's pretty incredible.
Right. I mean, in the first few days after birth, for example, breast milk is this amazing stuff called colostrum.
Okay.
It's packed with antibodies, immune factors. It's like this superpower shield for the baby, protecting them from infections.
Wow, that makes total sense. But, from talking to friends, I know breastfeeding isn't always easy.
Yeah, it can definitely have its challenges.
So does the guide talk about that at all? Address some of those worries?
Yeah. It does. It actually tackles those common anxieties head on. How often should I be feeding? Am I feeding enough? Is my baby getting enough? And it really stresses that newborns, it's normal for them to feed every 2 to 3 hours.
Wow, so often.
Yeah, they're constantly growing. And it's fascinating. Babies are they're better at regulating their intake than we often give them credit for.
I see.
It really is about trusting their cues.
So how can we tell if they're getting enough? Are there any signs to look for?
Well, wet diapers are a good indicator. You'll want to see around, say, 6 to 8 wet diapers a day. And if you're concerned, definitely don't hesitate to talk to your pediatrician.
That's good advice.
And don't be afraid to experiment. When it comes to breastfeeding positions, you've got the cradle hold, the football hold, or rugby ball hold, some people call it. Even lying down. It's all about finding what works best for you and your baby.
Right. Comfort is key. Okay, so we've talked about breastfeeding, but what about for those who can't or choose not to breastfeed? What does the guide say about formula?
Well, it reassures parents that formula is a safe and effective option. And formula has come a long way. In recent years especially, it's been designed to mimic breast milk composition as closely as possible.
Interesting.
It's still super important to choose the right type of formula, though.
Oh, I bet.
And that's where your pediatrician comes in. They can recommend a standard formula, a hypoallergenic one, or even a specialized formula. It really depends on the baby's specific needs.
That makes sense. So if your baby has reflux or lactose intolerance.
Exactly. Your pediatrician can help you navigate all that. They're your best resource.
So true. So it sounds like formula feeding has come a long way, but there are still things to consider.
Right. Choosing the right formula and then, of course, preparing and storing it correctly is crucial.
I bet there's a whole art to that.
It's all about following the instructions very carefully. No cutting corners when it comes to baby safety.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so let's say we've made it past those early weeks. Baby's growing, they're thriving, and now we're starting to think about introducing solid foods.
Exciting times.
It is, but also a little daunting, you know?
Absolutely. It's a whole new world.
So when does this guide recommend starting solids?
Both the WHO and the AAP recommend starting around 6 months.
Okay.
But it's important to remember, it's not just about age, it's about developmental milestones too.
Oh, that makes sense.
So, can your baby hold their head up?
Yeah.
Can they sit with support? Are they showing an interest in your food? Reaching for it?
Yeah.
And do they have the coordination to bring objects to their mouth?
Right. Those are all good signs.
Exactly. Those are all green lights.
Yeah.
Your baby is ready to start exploring the wonderful world of solid foods.
I love that. So once you've got those green lights, what kind of foods does the guide recommend starting with?
It's all about starting simple. Easily digestible purees are great. Classic veggies like carrots, zucchini, sweet potato, those are all good first choices.
And fruits too, right?
Yes. For fruits, Bananas, apples, and pears are all great options. Think mild flavors, smooth textures.
So no spicy peppers just yet.
Not quite. And remember, safety first. Always cook and puree everything thoroughly to prevent choking.
That's a good point.
I actually remember, this brings back memories, when my little one was starting solids, let's just say there were a few explosive incidents.
I bet it's all part of the fun, right?
Oh yeah, it's all part of the adventure.
Okay, so we've got the purees down, but I'm curious, as babies get older, how do we help them like graduate from those smooth textures to, more chunky foods?
The guide is all about gradually progressing in texture. So, around 8 to 10 months, you can start moving from purees to mashed or small, soft pieces of food.
Right.
Think like avocado chunks, pieces of cooked sweet potato, maybe some finely shredded chicken. The goal is to, stimulate their taste buds and help them develop those all-important chewing skills.
Right, that makes sense. What about protein? When should we start introducing meats and beans?
The guide recommends starting to incorporate protein around 8 to 10 months as well. So small amounts of well-cooked and finely chopped chicken, turkey, fish, or beans are great options.
So like no big steaks just yet.
Not quite. But again, remember, safety first. Always make sure any meat or fish is boneless and cooked thoroughly to eliminate any risk of choking.
Definitely. So we've covered veggies, fruits, and protein. What about grains? Where do those fit into the picture?
Iron-fortified infant cereals are a great way to introduce grains, and they're also a fantastic source of iron.
Right. Iron's super important for babies, isn't it?
It is. Essential for their growth and development.
Yeah.
So the guide recommends starting with single grain cereals like rice, oatmeal, or barley.
Okay.
And then once your baby tolerates those, you can gradually introduce multi-grain cereals.
Got it. So besides cereal, are there other good sources of iron we can offer?
Absolutely. Things like cooked lentils, pureed beans, even tofu are all excellent sources of iron. And protein too. You can mix those into other purees, or you can offer them on their own.
So many options. It sounds like the key is to offer a variety of foods to ensure they're getting all the nutrients they need.
You got it. Variety is key. And remember, babies don't need huge portions at this stage. Start with small amounts, maybe a tablespoon or two, and then gradually increase the portion size as they get older and more accustomed to solids.
Right. Makes sense. What about those times when, like, your baby just doesn't seem interested in eating, or they flat out refuse something they loved yesterday? It feels like babies can be so unpredictable.
Oh, tell me about it. The guide actually talks about this, and it emphasizes something really important: respecting your baby's cues.
Okay.
So we need to let go of that idea of the clean play club.
Right.
Babies are actually incredibly good at regulating their intake.
I see.
They know when they're hungry and when they're full. So we shouldn't force them to eat if they're turning their heads away or closing their house.
So forcing them is a no-no.
It can actually backfire and create a negative association with food. And we want meal times to be enjoyable for them, not a battle of wills.
That makes a lot of sense. Are there other things we can do to make meal times more positive and enjoyable?
Absolutely. The guide talks about creating a calm and focused environment for meals.
Okay.
So, dim the lights, maybe play some soothing music, minimize distractions like screens or toys.
So no TV in the background.
Ideally not. We really want to encourage mindful eating, even for our little ones.
That's a good reminder for me, too. If I'm, like, snacking on chips all day, my baby will pick up on that, right?
Exactly. Monkey do. So if your baby sees you enjoying a variety of healthy foods, they're much more likely to give them a try. And remember, it can take multiple exposures for a new food to be accepted.
Patience is key.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Speaking of patience, the guide also acknowledges that introducing solids can be messy.
Oh, yeah. I've heard stories.
But it's also a time of incredible learning and discovery for your little one. They're experiencing all these new textures, flavors, smells for the first time. So let them get messy. Encourage self-feeding and celebrate their successes, no matter how small.
So embrace the chaos.
Exactly. Embrace the chaos.
It does sound messy, but fun, too. So we've talked about a lot of the positives, but there are those moments, right, where it feels like maybe things aren't going as smoothly as we hoped.
Totally.
Yeah.
And this guide does a really great job of addressing some of those common challenges, like what happens if you think you have a picky eater on your hands?
Oh, the picky eater. I feel like every parent I know worries about that at some point.
It's totally normal for babies to go through phases. They're more selective about what they'll eat.
Yeah.
Yesterday's favorite is today's, worst enemy.
Yeah.
But one of the most fascinating things I learned from this guide is that babies' taste buds are still developing. So what might taste, bland to us adults
Right.
can be super intense for them.
Oh, that's interesting. So, like, are we supposed to just give in, only offer them the three foods they'll actually eat?
Not at all. The guide actually suggests continuing to offer a variety of foods, even those that have been, rejected before.
Mhm.
It can take, like, multiple exposures for a new flavor to be accepted.
Oh, okay. So persistence is key.
Yeah, definitely. And there's some things you can do to make those new foods more appealing. One tip from the guide is to pair a new food with a familiar favorite.
Oh, that's smart.
So it feels less intimidating. It's more part of a, safe, enjoyable meal.
Yeah. It's like sneaking in the veggies with the mac and cheese,
Like
right?
that. Another strategy they recommend is to involve your baby in the meal prep.
Oh, I like that.
Even just simple things like washing the veggies or
Yeah.
helping arrange food on their plates,
Hmm.
can create that sense of ownership
Yeah, for sure.
and excitement about trying new things.
Hmm.
And don't underestimate the power of presentation.
Yeah.
Making food visually appealing, colorful arrangements, fun shapes, maybe some dipping sauces,
Yeah.
it can go a long way.
Right. So it's all about making mealtime fun and engaging,
Yeah,
not a battle.
exactly. And just as important as what you do is what you avoid. So, avoid power struggles,
Mhm.
avoid forcing your baby to eat.
Right. That makes sense because I can see how that could backfire and make them even more resistant to trying new things.
Yeah, and if we zoom out a little, look at the bigger picture, what we're really aiming for is to nurture a positive, healthy relationship with food, one that will last a lifetime. It's
Absolutely.
not just about what they eat today. It's about cultivating a sense of enjoyment and confidence around food.
That's a great point. So speaking of things that can cause a lot of anxiety for new parents, let's talk about food allergies. I know that's something I worry about.
It's a valid concern. But this guide offers some really helpful advice. One of the most important takeaways is that delaying the introduction of common allergens like peanuts, eggs, and dairy can actually increase the risk of developing allergies.
Oh, wow. So earlier is better.
That's what the research is suggesting, yeah. So the guide recommends introducing those foods one at a time, starting around 6 months of age, and then waiting 3 to 5 days between each new food to monitor for any reactions.
That's really good to know. And it's like super important to know the signs of a reaction, right? Just in case.
Oh, absolutely. So, you're looking for things like rash, hives, swelling, vomiting, diarrhea, difficulty breathing. And if you see any of those signs, seek medical attention immediately.
Right. Good to have all that on hand. What about those times when your baby's appetite seems all over the place? One day they're eating everything in sight, and the next day they're barely touching their food. It's like, what's going on?
I remember those days. This guide, it actually reassures us that those fluctuations are totally normal. Babies go through growth spurts. They have developmental milestones.
Yeah.
Their bodies are working so hard to grow, and so their energy needs are constantly changing.
So it's like not worth panicking if they skip a meal or two.
Not at all. Trust your baby's cues. They're the best judge of how much they need to eat.
Okay.
And on the flip side, if they're showing signs of hunger more frequently, offer extra feedings or snacks.
Yeah.
It's all about responding to their individual needs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I really appreciate about this whole deep dive is how it's highlighted that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to baby feeding.
You're absolutely right. Every baby is unique.
Ooh.
And what works for one baby may not work for another.
Ex-
The guide emphasizes the importance of observation,
Mm,
experimentation,
mm.
and finding what feels right for you and your little one. And, it's okay to ask for help.
Oh,
The guide really encourages parents to reach out to their pediatrician, their family friends for support, especially during those moments of, doubt or frustration.
yeah.
Remember, you're not alone in this journey.
That is such a good reminder. It really does take a village, right?
It does.
So, to wrap up all this amazing information, what would you say are the biggest takeaways from this complete guide to baby nutrition?
I think the most important thing is to approach baby feeding with a balanced perspective. It's about providing nutritious food, but it's also about fostering a positive relationship with food, respecting your baby's cues, trusting your instincts as a parent.
It's about nourishing their bodies and their minds.
Beautifully said.
Well, I think that about covers it for this deep dive into baby nutrition. I hope you guys feel empowered to navigate all the exciting, and sometimes messy parts of feeding your little one. And
Mhm.
just remember, every bite, every mealtime is a step towards raising a happy and healthy eater.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Until next time, happy feeding, everyone. Please let me know if you need any further assistance.